Hello, I'm Bruce Lorincz, and this show is called Bruce on the Loose, and I talk to people in county government and also in the city and school system as well. Today we're very pleased to have Mayor Robin Laubaugh with us, and she is, of course, the mayor, and Robert Patrick, the service director of the City of Wadsworth. And we've talked to them before, but now we're kind of honing in on a very important issue coming up on the November 2nd ballot, the 1/10% income tax for roads and streets. Mayor, I think you know a little bit of history with this issue.
Oh, I sure do. When I actually became mayor, one of the issues that we were dealing with at the time was the condition of our roads. Sadly, they were in pretty poor shape at that time. And during those days, actually, they were funded by the city, but also it was funded also by assessments to the property owners. And bottom line is we just did not have the funds needed to be able to maintain the streets properly. And so anyways, that was an issue that we had discussed not only at the city level and administration, but also through with council and so forth. And I also have to give credit to Susan Hanlon, who was a previous council member at the time. And she really recognized the importance of those streets. And so she kind of said, hey, listen, we need to really look at this as far as funding is concerned. Yeah.
And I think it was a 10-year, when you were on on council and the mayor, you initiated for a 10-year period, I believe.
Well, what we did is we did really an in-depth examination as far as what would it take for us to be able to get our streets up to the level that we felt would be a good level to be able to have in the community. And it actually determined it would be a 20-year program. But we wanted to prove to the voters that this is, we're using these funds and doing a good job with these funds. And so we said, let's put on a ballot for a 0.1% income tax for 10 years. And then we'll see how we've done. And then we'll ask the voters for the next 10 years, recognizing that it would be a 20-year just to get the streets up to the level of service that was desired at that time.
So, Robert, this isn't really an increase in what people have already been paying. Is that correct? The 1/10? And I would think it wouldn't really raise a great deal of money, but I guess I'm wrong, maybe, huh?
Yeah, good question, Bruce. And we actually have the ballot language that can be shown there. But it is a continuance of the current 0.1% income tax rate that's there now. So it's not any new money. If it's turned down, it would come off that 0.1% tax, and then we'd probably look at maybe a future time frame to bring it back on. But it's going to be the same amount that everyone's been paying, and the funding that it has been able to generate has been a tremendous for the amount of money that we're able to put into the streets. We have been collecting over the last couple of years around $900,000 to $950,000. This year we're looking next year almost towards $1 million, and all that money goes directly into the streets. It's not used for anything else. In comparison, the prior funding that the mayor mentioned, it was around $200,000 a year. So this is 5 times what we used to spend. And getting back to the mayor's point, those roads were in bad shape 10 years or more ago, and so the improvements I think have showed as far as the money that we spent and the amount of streets that we've been able to do.
But the costs have also been going up. I'm sure construction costs, like the inflation we're seeing right now, is escalated, and what it took to maybe pave a road years ago, it's considerably higher now. Is that correct?
Yeah, the cost of doing business continually increases every year. So there is a percentage each year that things do go up. So you're right, it's not comparable, the dollars that we're spending now compared to what it was 10 years ago as far as dollar to dollar, but we are still able to spend 5 times more, and the inflationary impact hasn't been that great.
Mayor, people really appreciate going down the street and possibly where they live without potholes, without having issues. They may not actually say it to their councilman or you or their neighbors, but it really is something that they really appreciate, and they really think is a good situation that the city can do for them.
Oh, they do, and actually, believe it or not, I do get compliments. I just had a compliment the other day that somebody said, "Thank you for doing our street." They were so thrilled. Right. But I truly believe it's a reflection of our community. You drive into the community of Wadsworth, and And I remember some of our arterial streets were coming in, and they didn't look too good. They were kind of bumpy, and we were patching them, and they were just in poor shape. And so to me, that wasn't a really good reflection of our community, because we take pride in our community, and that includes our streets. And so it's nice to be able to have turned the corner. Obviously, we're still maintaining them, and we still have a ways to go, but I think we can, I feel very confident in saying that a lot has been accomplished over the last 10 years.
Robert, some of that is just where we reside, Northeast Ohio, and I am not a full-fledged reader of Poor Richard's Almanac, but the prediction there is a very cold and very bitter winter coming. But that doesn't help the road situation, does it?
No, it doesn't. You're exactly right. All the infrastructure suffers because of where we live. If you go down south, typically way south, where they don't have any below freezing temperatures, the roads are in a lot better shape overall, and they last longer because of that. If you go way up north, the same is true. It could be worse, but I always tell people, in the wintertime, if the temperature changed from 40 degrees down to 20 degrees, and it stayed at 20 degrees for 5 months and then warmed up again, would actually be in better shape, because the biggest thing that damages is that freeze-thaw cycle. So it's 40 degrees, and then it goes down to 20 for a couple of days, and then it goes back up to 40 or 50, and then it goes back down, and it hovers around freezing, because that has the impacts on all the water in the ground, and really moves, and when the ground freezes, it expands or it contracts and really moves all that infrastructure. So, one thing we do is in our program now is we do crack sealing. We do a lot more crack sealing. We have a rotation where every 5 years we'll go through each area. That's something to keep that water infiltration from happening. And then when you get into the winter seasons, it keeps that water from out of the cracks, keeps that freeze-thaw cycle. It protects things more. And so we've been able to do more preventative maintenance, different items, than we were able to in the past, which gives a longer life to those streets.
Service Director Robert Patrick, do we have information on the first 5 years, and then lately how many roads we've been doing in comparison?
Yeah, we have a graph that shows the last 5 years of the old program. When I say the old program, like the mayor mentioned, prior to 2011, that was when the income tax was voted upon. So 2012 was the first year, and you can see the last 5 years, so 2007 through 2011, you can see in blue there how many streets we did. And those were different types of repairs. There's some concrete repairs we do, concrete streets. We used to do thin overlay on the asphalt streets, plus the temporary or base repairs to those streets, plus we would do some preventative maintenance. But then if you look at the next chart, which shows an image of the map of the city and what we've been able to do over the last 5 years, you can see, I think it's pretty evident how many additional streets have been done. And our repairs have been more extensive than in the past, where instead of just doing a thin overlay of asphalt, we're actually grinding down a couple inches, taking off the intermediate layer, putting that back on, putting a finished layer. We've been able to spend money on concrete streets where we have grind down the concrete, and we've put some materials down, some fabric, and then we've put a couple different coats of asphalt on top of that. So it's really improved the condition of those streets. Those are a lot more expensive repairs, and we haven't had the funds in the past to do that. So by and large, I think with the additional funding, we have been able to treat a lot more additional streets.
Mm-hmm. Mayor, it doesn't seem like any area of the city has been neglected. It doesn't matter if you go in the south end or north or near the high school. Some of the streets in the last couple years, they all seem to be tied together, and again, you're not missing too many areas.
No, we're getting to all of them, and there certainly is a rotation, and the priority is given to those obviously that need the attention the most at that particular time. But obviously Robert had just mentioned as far as maintenance as well. But there is definitely a science to that, and it's examined every year because, as you've mentioned, the weather conditions and often the soil conditions underneath the streets, sometimes they will affect what happens that particular given year. And so one year you think a street's going to be maybe on the highest priority, and maybe something else kind of scoots ahead of that because they were more damaged that particular year. And so there definitely is a system to it, but certainly at some point in time, all the streets are going to be done in the city, and then we start again.
That's true, yes. How long usually do we project once we've done a street? How long do we hope that it lasts?
Oh, it depends on the type of materials
Right.
and thing. Obviously, the concrete lasts forever. I mean, my gosh, we have some that lasted, 50 years almost on the concrete. Yeah, but in asphalt's not as much, but you have that cost and benefit type of thing. But yeah, definitely. I think the main thing is with these additional funds, one of the nice benefits is that this is a more efficient and more cost-effective way of maintaining your streets, because it's a lot more expensive to completely rebuild a street versus doing some of these preventive maintenance that keep a street in good condition for years before we have to do a complete rebuild.
We talked a minute ago about the citizens being involved, and you're having them vote after a 10-year trial and seeing how we did. If they are concerned about their street, can they go ahead and voice it and say to their councilman
Sure.
or somewhere else, say, hey, this street hasn't been done for a while, maybe we should take a look at it?
Yeah, we certainly do. We welcome comments, and we are very interested in the feedback from the residents and so forth. And you mentioned council. Actually, these types of things are discussed in our committee meetings because our council members need to be aware of these streets, and they can give feedback as far as, well, I've heard from residents, or I have noticed myself that certain things. We certainly have eyes out there. We have our departments and our engineering, our streets that are looking at these streets specifically, but we certainly enjoy and welcome any sort of feedback from our residents.
Robert, we talked before about the solar fields and how Wadsworth helps Wadsworth. We really can't depend too much on the state or federal government helping streets and roads within the city of Wadsworth, can we?
By and large, no. The streets need to be funded by us. There are instances where the state and federal dollars do contribute. Those are on those state routes. So State Route 94, for instance, that's typically those projects are federally funded. State Route 261 as well, State Route 57. In the last 5 years, we've done each of those roads, and there has been a lot of dollars towards them. For instance, back in 2015, we did State Route 94 that we see behind us, even going all the way through downtown, and that was over a $2 million project. So, of course, it would be very difficult if we even could fund that, but they had some programs that we do have to provide matching dollars. They do want some skin in the game. They won't do the whole thing, but overall, we spent about 20% of that, so about $400,000 was our portion. But when we talk about the new program to the old program, it would have been hard for us to even come up with that match, the $400,000 with the old program, and the funds that are being competing with all the other departments in the city. So that has enabled us to leverage those dollars, those street improvement program, the income tax dollars, and being able to do more streets. On a typical year, we bring in around $900,000 to $950,000 in the last couple of years, but a lot of times we spend a lot more than that, where our program is a lot greater, like back in 2015. And so we're always trying to get other monies outside of the city, but most of those streets do fall on us.
Robert, could you take us through the process of maybe bidding a street and how that will go through fruition?
Yeah, it's a pretty comprehensive process, and one that we've been doing different than we did in the past, that I think has really worked out better to be able to get better pricing and get better life out of the street, or more enjoyment out of a nice street. We typically, in the wintertime, our engineering department starts to look at all the different streets, looks at the ratings, looks at what's coming up next. They take a look at improvement projects coming up. So, for instance, a street that maybe is in poor repair that needs to be done and is ready, but we say, in 2 years we're going to replace the water line there. We don't go ahead and pave that because we don't want to come back in and dig it up.
Yeah, that would not make sense.
It would not make sense, and people would not be very happy about that. So, but all those streets, we take that list together, we take a look at it, we go out and we individually look at those. We put that list together, we start having conversations with City Council in December or January. and then we go out to bid. So we put a package together with all those streets that we think we can afford based on the funding that we have. And then we have some alternates in there too, because a lot of times we'll go out with a package like we did this year, and prices will come in lower than anticipated. So we still have the money there that we want to spend, so we'll add some additional streets in. So that bidding process, it takes about a month that we put it out on the street. We've been doing that early in February time frame, so we think that's preferred pricing because these contractors have time in the winter, and that's when they're bidding projects. They're putting their schedule together, so we hope we get some preferred pricing, because later in the year if you put something out, they might say, boy, yeah, sure, I'll do that project, but it's going to cost you a little bit more because maybe they'll have to kick something else out, or prices go up. So we typically then go through that awarding process in the spring, and then we're usually ready for the contractor to come in the summertime. We like to do it early in the year so we can get more enjoyment out of it, and the weather's better. Typically there's no issues with doing it late in the year where you could have some cold snaps that could affect the quality, but also we try to do it when school's not in session because we don't want to impact the busing. We always try to help out that way. So that's kind of a rough idea of our overall schedule. Then in the fall we start putting together the budget together. We have those discussions with City Council, and then we start everything over again.
So the bidding, if approved, that one company would do most of the roads then for the city of Wadsworth. Is that what I gleaned from that?
Yes, exactly right. And we have in our program now, we have 4 or 5 different aspects of the program. So for instance, we do a large portion of asphalt resurfacing. So we have monies that go to that. Usually that's one contract that gets that. Then we have some concrete. We have half of our streets are concrete. We do concrete repairs. So that'll be another bid, a different type of contractor will do that. And then we do our crack sealing, maybe some pavement rejuvenators, maybe some diamond grinding. Last couple of years we've tried some pilot areas like on Summit Street to go in and do some fine diamond grinding that really improves and enhances the quality of the street condition. We've got a lot of them, a lot of compliments about that. Also helps some drainage and issues too, and it gets us down the line so maybe we don't have to repair that street for a number of years. So there's a lot of different aspects, and typically there are different contractors that get those.
Have there been concerns with receiving materials for the construction folks? We hear about supply chain issues in all sorts of different states and areas, and ships are waiting to get to dock. There's no one to unload them. That really hasn't seemed to impact the road situation very much.
It did not this year. Those materials and supplies usually are born or created and manufactured locally, so there hasn't been an issue, but it's something that we've had in other aspects of the city and other departments and areas that there have been issues either procuring something or the price is going up quite a bit over the last year because of COVID.
Mayor, we talked when we got together recently about the city helping businesses, construction folks find more people, manufacturing. Just every day on the news, there's hospitals and manufacturing, the schools. Hey, by the way, could you drive bus for us? We need a bus driver. But just thought I'd mention it. Yeah. We just need people in all areas. What can the city do to help all those entities?
Yeah, we've heard quite a bit when I travel to visit with our businesses and just in different meetings. Our businesses are in need of workers, and it doesn't matter. It used to be mainly the manufacturers that I was hearing about prior to COVID. Now, obviously, now it's not just manufacturing; it's our retail, our commercial are all in need of workers. Really, nobody's immune to that. We've done what we can as far as helping to get the word out about these job opportunities. On our website, we have the ability that, obviously we list our own needs, because even in the city of Wadsworth, sometimes we have needs for employees to come. But also, we certainly will list, and anybody that would like to have that listed as well. We also communicate and coordinate with Medina County Economic Development Corporation, and they have an initiative called worklocal.net, and we participate in that as well. But basically, it's jobs available in Medina County, because we recognize that the majority of people work outside of Medina County. If we could just keep the people in Medina County working in Wadsworth or in the county, we'd be in much better shape. And so you can go online for worklocal.net and have all the jobs that you could ever imagine advertised for in this county.
How about walking across the street? The development we talked about on Seville Road.
Yeah.
Both the factories there have lined the street with placards wanting people. They could get up, have their breakfast, walk across, and I think the people would probably accept
Yes,
them
any given day, you can just go in that neck of the woods, and there's
again, we
jobs
need bus
available.
drivers. If you're looking for
That's
a job
it.
for the school, and a few people, we could use officiating. We have a few people less than we had a few years ago. Robert, what about, I see so many roads in the township. How does that tie in? Reimer Road, Hartman Road, Johnson Road. I mean,
Leatherman.
we go on Seville.
Yeah.
We go on and on. How does that work in relation to what the city's doing with this income tax increase?
Yeah, good question. We use these dollars to pay the portion of our roads that are in the city of those roads you mentioned. So, for instance, Leatherman Road, south of 76, we did this year ourselves because it's all in the city. North of 76, between 76 and Reimer Road, the jurisdiction boundaries between the city and the township go back and forth. Sometimes it's the center line, sometimes there's stretches where it's township, sometimes there's some stretches where it's city. So whichever jurisdiction has the most land of that street in their city, they take the lead on it. So for instance, it was the county that did it for those roads because it was in the township than in the city, but we have to pay our portion. Johnson Road, Seville Road, for instance, we pay for Seville Road, but there's a portion of Seville Road that's in the township, so then we do the lead, but then basically they cover their portion. And so we've been able to get some outside dollars too through for some of those roads that you mentioned. Hartman Road, for instance, this year, that was funded through some outside dollars that we paid our match, and then the township paid their match.
I have to tell you, those roads were, expertly done. I mean, the edge lines. I mean, they did it in stages. They said no edge lines, and they took their time. They did it, and you could tell that they took a lot of pride in what they do because Johnson Road, we go there quite often, and boy, they're just really, really well done, and that has to make you feel a good feeling because you contracted indirectly with those people, and they came through for it and did a good job at a lower price this year too.
Yeah, I agree. Everyone loves a nicely paved street or any type of improvement project. We may get a little greater sense of accomplishment when we go down that road, but there's other aspects to it, like the striping, like you said, the berming that's done afterwards. Those all have good effects, and like the mayor said, we get compliments. We've gotten compliments on those street we're done, even on the berming. Wow, that's really nice. I'm glad the contractor did that, or glad that you had them do that. And there's different types of street repairs, like we talked about. The township may do some of their streets a little different than ours. Ours may, at the end of the day, be a little smoother based on the treatment we do. Like on Johnson Road, for instance, you have the portion in the city, it's a little smoother, and then it gets a little rougher just because it's a little different treatment that the township uses sometimes.
Mayor, we talked last time about local elections and how it's very important to get out there. And I didn't wear my sticker, but I voted yesterday.
Oh,
so the city and the schools and the county issues are off to a good start. My wife and I went and voted, and in-person voting is open starting yesterday through the day before the election on the 1st. So people sometimes complain about things, but if they haven't participated, why can they complain?
Yeah. Well, we have a wonderful system, as you well know, that individuals do have the ability and they have a voice. And then voting obviously is a very personal decision, and they can go in and make that very personal decision when they vote. But we are very fortunate to live in our country to be able to have those opportunities.
In the odd years, Robert, we're having council. We're voting on city council, and certainly the two issues in the county that impact us: the senior citizen center and also the health department, which we've certainly used a great deal now. It's a situation where I would try to instruct students that if you don't vote, then my vote is even that much more important and more impactful. What is your thoughts about local elections and democracy?
I agree with you, and every vote counts, and we've seen that through pick an election. Sometimes, even at the local level, sometimes the margins are very narrow, and nobody ever wants to look back and say, "Boy, I should have, would have, could have," and don't like to hear when people are upset about something. I think the best thing you can do is to go and vote to make sure that your voice has been heard. And like you said, that's the best way to make sure that the way you think matters and counts. And in our country, that's the way we're able to do it. So we encourage everyone to go out there and vote. No matter how they look at an issue, we just want to make sure that their vote's heard. And we always try to do things that are the best for the community as a whole. It's hard to do that sometimes, but in a matter like this, you can really get a good gauge for if we're doing the right thing.
It was really nice to see where we did the show on Rittman Road. There's a new factory being developed there, and Mayor told me there was a company already been here, but they're expanding. So that they must have good faith and confidence in Wadsworth, and they're probably going to employ more people, and that's all positive.
Very positive. Like you said, we're making jobs in this community for people to be here. You have a company that has been successful. They want to expand. We always love to see that happening. We want folks to be as very successful as they can. There is the revenue portion of it, for instance, on the income side that we'll get. And then something like that, you're creating a new facility. They're basically moving out of an old facility. You're creating another opportunity for another business to come in, and all those benefits that we just mentioned. So we're very happy when folks want to expand and they want to stay here because they have a choice. They have an option where they want to relocate or where they want to build that new facility, and we take pride when they want to stay here.
Mayor, the last word for you, November 2nd, very important, and you urge everyone to vote, and you want everyone to vote for the city issue, I'm sure.
You bet.
No question about it. Thank you very much for joining me today on Bruce on the Loose. And next show, we're going to talk to Tom O'Donnell and find out what they're doing with Habitat for Humanity. Thanks for viewing. Perfect.
You are watching WCTV, Wadsworth Community Television.